Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Chill Out podcast. So I decided, let me chill in my car again. Let's grab a matcha and let's just hang out. Let's just be friends, okay? So I was at dinner the other night with my friend, and we're both single, and we see this young couple sit down at the table like across from where we are, and they're having wine. Like the guy's like pouring her a glass. They're in like a deep conversation, and the guy's literally looking into her soul, actually taking note of everything that she's saying. And we're both like swooning, literally. And I'm such a simp for love. It's actually so embarrassing, but I honestly don't care. But we were both thinking to ourselves, where do we find guys like this? Honestly, asking for a friend. Look, my brother roasts me all the time because he literally says that I'm so picky. He says that I want a surfer from Camps Bay. And I'm just like, he doesn't have to be from Camps Bay. So in this episode, I really want to dive into something that's been on my mind a lot lately, which is toxic masculinity, emotional repression, and what it actually means to be a man today. So I really wanted to talk about like why the world and why women are craving something more softer, more grounded, more real. I know I am, because maybe we don't want a guy that dominates the room. Maybe we want a guy who listens, who feels, who actually creates. Okay, so I've been thinking a lot lately about the kind of partner that I actually want, and weirdly enough, it's not the guy that everyone always tells me that I should be with. So toxic masculinity, okay, I think that phrase gets thrown around a lot without people actually understanding what it means. And no, it's not saying that being masculine is bad. Masculinity in itself can be beautiful. It can be protective and grounded and present. But toxic masculinity is what happens when that energy gets distorted by rigid societal expectations. It's the belief that to be a man, you have to be dominant and aggressive and emotionally detached and in control a lot of the time. It's that pressure to be the strong one, to never cry, to never show fear, to never say, I'm not okay. And it starts young. Like most guys are taught to toughen up, stop crying, and never act like a girl, right? We've all heard it. They've been handed this like unspoken rule book that says being soft is weak and being in control, even if that means emotionally shutting down, is actually a strength. But here's the thing. This version of masculinity is not just outdated, it's deeply harmful, and not just to women or the people around these men, but to themselves. Men are struggling under the weight of emotional suppression, and we have all of these numbers to prove it. There's also this issue of loneliness. So a 2021 survey found that 15% of men reported having no close friendships at all. Think about that. Many men lose emotional intimacy after childhood because they're no longer encouraged to stay connected in that way. And when emotional suppression is off limits, what's left? Anger, frustration, because that's often the only acceptable emotion they're allowed to feel. That disconnection doesn't just affect their mental health, it damages relationships, it creates distance between partners. So many women end up in relationships where they're doing all the emotional labor because their partner has no idea how to actually open up or process what they feel. And for someone like me, a woman who's creative, emotional, and deeply introspective, that emotional unavailability doesn't work. It leaves me feeling unseen, which is why I find myself attracted to men who are more grounded and thoughtful and emotionally intelligent. You know, someone who from the outside just like radiates this quiet confidence. He feels like someone who's in touch with his emotions, with his creativity, and isn't trying to prove anything to anyone. Like that's the kind of masculinity I find so beautiful. The kind that doesn't need to dominate a room, but makes you feel so safe in it, because there's nothing more powerful than a man who's not afraid to feel. And in a world that's, you know, still telling men to like toughen up, I think softness is the most radical thing there is. And bonus points if they are Australian.
Slipping all that shrimp on the barbie.
I want to be clear, okay? Growing up with a dad and brothers who are pretty traditionally manly, I know there's absolutely nothing wrong with that energy. It's actually really comforting when a guy can take the lead or be strong and make you feel safe. That kind of confidence and protectiveness has its place. What I'm really talking about is having a balance. It's not about like rejecting masculinity or wanting a guy who's like all softness and rainbows and like no backbone. It's about wanting a man who can be both strong and emotionally available. Someone who can lead when the moment calls for it, but also isn't afraid to be vulnerable or like slow down and feel. Because to me, the best kind of partner isn't just like the alpha guy in the room. It's the guy who like knows when to hold space, when to listen, and when to just be with you in the messy, creative, emotional parts of life. Like that balance, that mix of strength and sensitivity, that's the vibe like I am so craving for. And you know, bonus points if they are surfers or play guitar, wear rings, like let's go. I just feel like masculinity is evolving, and while it might feel slow at times, the shift is definitely happening and it's meaningful. For decades, the dominant narrative around what it means to be a man has been pretty much narrow and rigid. Like, be tough, don't show your emotions, always be in control and lead with strength and dominance. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. But now more and more men are quietly pushing back against these like outdated expectations and redefining masculinity in a way that includes emotional intelligence and being vulnerable and being creative. This evolution isn't just like a trend, it's like a cultural shift that's helping men build healthier relationships with themselves and with others and allowing them to show up more fully as human beings. I mean, I've always been attracted to like these really laid back type of dudes, and usually they're very, I don't know, like they're not these super manly guys, which is so crazy because I grew up with like boys and I feel like I have a guy brain. But we're seeing this new kind of masculinity reflected in public figures now too, who aren't afraid to break like the mold, whether it's guys like Felix Mallard or Paul Mescal and Harry Styles or even Johnny Depp. They're all like these shining examples. They're not like your typical alpha male, but they're still sexy. And instead they show that being a man doesn't have to mean, you know, being emotionally closed off or hyper masculine. Instead, they sort of embrace complexity. They're creative, introspective, and emotionally expressive. And I find that so hot. They show us that confidence like doesn't need to be loud or aggressive. It can be quiet and thoughtful and like deeply grounded and actually make you feel safe. The rise of the emotionally intelligent man doesn't just benefit women or relationships. It's a win for men themselves. By embracing vulnerability and emotional expression, men can experience deeper self-awareness and mental wellness, breaking free from like that loneliness and suppression that toxic masculinity often causes. It's a powerful reminder, you know, that the real strength comes from being fully human and that healthy emotional regulation is cool, and that the future of masculinity includes like kindness and creativity and emotional depth alongside strength and protectiveness. As a creative and deeply emotional person, I've come to realize that what I really crave in a partner is someone who's grounded and emotionally available, because that's what makes me feel truly safe, not boring. And I really admire like a guy that is also creative, whether that's playing music or an instrument or writes poetry or is an actor, like anything creative that they're able to also do and we're able to relate to on that level is so cool as well. And it's such a grounding thing if you would have that in a relationship or in a partner, because that's what makes me truly feel safe. When you sort of live with a heightened sensitivity and feel everything so deeply like I do, there's an exhaustion that comes from the constant noise and pace of someone who's like trying to be the alpha or like show off. I find that like honestly so cringe. I love a guy who's like low-key awkward, doesn't know how attractive he is creative, can laugh at himself. I like that type of energy because it's relatable to me. It makes me feel comforted. And I would hope that I would be that kind of energy to someone else if that's what they wanted. I don't want someone who's like just trying to prove how manly they are. Honestly, that energy just feels exhausting and alienating to me. Instead, I want someone who can sit with me in the comfortable silence, who will join me in taking blurry photos of like sunsets just because it feels right in the moment. You know, someone who's genuinely interested in just being vulnerable and actually make me feel seen and heard. And that's not something that we speak about a lot because remember, showing feelings is very uncool. But it's a masculinity that's not loud or aggressive, but quietly strong. You know, just being able to hold space for both people, what they need, without needing to control or dominate. And honestly, I think a lot of us, whether we realize it or not, are looking for that balance of strength and softness. When I think back on my past relationships, I realize how complex my journey with love and masculinity has been. In my early 20s, I was involved in like a situationship with a guy who was very emotional, almost the opposite of like the traditional masculine type. He wasn't like dominant or confident in like the classic sense, but instead he was deeply sensitive and struggling with obviously his own challenges. But you know, while on paper this might seem like a great fit for someone like me who, like I said, wants emotional depth, it also came with its own set of difficulties. Like, he didn't really speak to me very kindly. He was all over the place. It was just a confusing, toxic situation. And I find that there's a difference between being soft and being emotionally aware and emotionally intelligent enough to handle yourself in the best way possible so that you don't hurt someone. What I want and what I'm looking for, and I'm okay to wait a little bit longer until I get that. As I've grown and, you know, leaned fully into my creative side, I've realized I'm naturally drawn to guys who embody that vibe, you know, those who are artistic, maybe a little surfer, skater vibe, you know, super chill, but like deeply introspective and obviously emotionally aware. There's something so magnetic about someone who can hold space for their feelings and mine, who isn't rushing or like trying to perform masculinity like the way society expects. To me, that kind of presence is sexy, okay? It is super sexy. It's a masculinity that feels free and balanced and real, and honestly, that's the kind of vibe that I'm currently trying to go for. I'm so grateful, and I know this episode is coming out on Father's Day, but I'm so grateful to have a dad who's not just my father, but my best friend and a real example of what a man can be. Sure, he's like rugged and outdoorsy and driven and undeniably manly, but he's also given me the kind of advice about men and relationships that's really helped shape how I see love. And because of him, I appreciate the kind of strength that comes from being protective and dependable. And I want to feel safe. I want to be with someone who can take the lead when it matters and like show up in a good way. That's a big part of why I don't want anyone to think that being a man means just being soft or distant. It's about having that balance. But here's the thing. I'm also tired of like the patterns of attracting emotionally unavailable guys who look the part, but then leave me feeling super unseen or disconnected. It's like my mind is evolving and maturing and I'm starting to crave something so much deeper. And that's what really inspired this episode. You know, a man who's not just about like the surface level confidence or like macho energy, but someone who brings humor, creativity, and emotional awareness to the table. Okay, I'm not asking for a Lamborghini. Okay, I'm asking for literally such simple things. It's like weird pressure right now to like get out there, to swipe, to always be exploring a million options. Like love is some like numbers game. And while that might work for some people, it doesn't have to be the only way. If you know in your gut that you're someone who values depth and connection and energy, waiting for the right feeling instead of forcing something just to feel something, that's clarity, that's self-respect. Like, you don't need to be out in modular every night, okay? Or swiping on a dating app, okay? You're good. So don't allow other people to put pressure on you. Respect your journey and respect what you want. It takes strength to be patient when the world tells you to like rush. It takes confidence to know that not everyone deserves access to your time or your softness and your energy. And it takes real awareness to say, actually, I'm not just looking for another warm body, okay? I'm looking for someone who's actually going to meet me where I'm at. I think that's the whole point of unlearning toxic masculinity and redefining love for yourself. It's realizing that we don't have to keep chasing loud, emotionally closed off love stories just because we've been taught that's what passion looks like. It's okay to want something slower and deeper and safer. It sounds so sexual, but you get my vibe. You know, still romantic, still fun, still full of like chemistry, but rooted in actual emotional connection. and something that is good for your nervous system, guys. Honestly, I think it's so sexy when a guy admits his flaws, shares what he's learning, and isn't trying to play the cool guy who doesn't care card anymore. That's hot. So guys, thanks for chilling out with me in the car.
I'm in the car.
I love hanging out with you. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Try this matcha, guys. I swear it's one of the best things you'll ever have. Like, honestly. I love you. Bye.